It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
All right, here's a question, Brian. This one is from Vicky. Vicky says, I have over $1 million in my traditional IRA. I want to convert it to a Roth IRA. Should I go at it incrementally over years or do it all in 1 year so I can start earning some tax-free income? Now, I'll do the compliance disclaimer. Vicky, we can't give you any sort of specific advice here on the show. But Brian, why don't you talk a little bit about what is a Roth conversion? What's she asking? And what are some things when we do this kind of stuff for clients that we sort of think through and we kind of look at and we think about?
Vicky, this is a great question. And I will tell you, you've already offered up how much you have. This is the part where you're essentially getting into abundance cycle graduation territory because there's just a lot of variables that come in. But let's talk about this. So $1 million, good chunk of money. And, and what she's talking about is we know that with IRA assets, they're unique in the fact that the government lets you put money into these IRAs with the understanding they grow tax deferred. But when you reach to a certain age, you're going to have what's called a required minimum distribution, meaning the government's going to force you to start pulling money out of these tax favored assets, and then you'll start paying income taxes on it. So there's this clock in the future. And by the way, it used to be 70 and a half. Forever it was 70 and a half. And then they fast forward to or rewind just a few years ago, it changed to 72 years of age is where required minimum distributions. And currently there's discussion on legislation right now that would take that up to 75. So this is something that's in flux. But what I like to see, and did Vicky give us her age?
She did not.
So Vicky, what I like to see though is because it's hard to do a lot of Roth conversions when you're in the highest marginal brackets, and we talk about that all the time. Once your marginal rate, meaning if you add your federal, what the next dollar will be taxed at, plus the state income taxes, plus any local taxes. Once that number is over 30%, you're like, wow, is there a chance that when I retire and I don't have earned income flowing in anymore, are my taxes going to go way down because I'm in a much lower marginal rate? And this is also why we love talking about, step 7 of the financial order of operations. You go moneyguy.com/resources or even learn.moneyguy.com if you want to have the course on the financial order of operations, because we talk about the triple buckets that you need to have: the after tax, the tax deferred, which are your IRAs and so forth, and then even the tax free like the Roth, because they allow you hopefully in retirement that you can manipulate legally how much you pay in taxes. Because if you're no longer living off of your earned income, now you get to choose, especially if you're retiring in your 50s or 60s, before the government starts making you take those required distributions. You have a huge opportunity here to look at the tax code and figure out, hey, what's the most optimal way to pull my money? And there's several factors. You're talking about doing Roth conversions, but there's another thing. Let me start going through some of these variables you need to consider.
Sure.
We pay attention to also, is there a portion of capital gains that you can take? Because realize the government has this crazy provision that if you make below a certain threshold, you pay a 0% capital gains rate when your income's low. If you're paying 0% capital gains, you need to take that into account. That's a very valuable thing. So that's the first thing. You're taking that into account. You're also taking into account, when do I start Social Security? Because that increases taxability. And you can start taking it at 62. You can do it full retirement age, which might be 67. Or you can wait until 70 because from full retirement age to 70, they're going to pay you 8% more per year. All these variables come in, and then don't forget you got Medicare. Medicare kicks in at 65, but they charge your Medicare premiums based upon your income in the past. So they're going to push your premiums up if you make too much. So you better take that into account. So that's what we pay attention to, the tax rates, and then all these outside influences that come into account. And then we figure out, is there a plan? Maybe there's a 3-year window. Maybe there's a 5, maybe there's a 10-year window where under current tax policy, we can convert $35,000 a year, or we can do $40,000 a year. And that's why, Vicky, I don't know your details. So, but it is one of those things where we try to think of it in terms of optimization, because I would feel horrible to tell you to go dump all $1 million into your ordinary tax rates, trigger all the different surcharges and other things because you blew past all the income thresholds, and then you have some regret on that because you essentially ate up 40% of that money almost overnight. You can imagine we're technicians, so we prefer to kind of optimize that strategy as much as possible.
If you are in this situation, Brian he started with this. This is a great time where it might make sense to take the relationship to the next level. If you haven't gone to check out the website, what we do in our day job, go to aboundwealth.com. We have, I would say, the best team of advisors in the whole world. Amazing advisors here who can help navigate what strategy actually makes sense for you when it comes to doing Roth conversions and how you should think about approaching that. Because these things are very big decisions that have very long tails of implications. You want to make sure that you're making the right decision, you're making it well, and you haven't just measured once or twice, you've measured 3, 4, 5 times before you begin putting them into place.